Welcome to part 2, Not All Men Are Sly Foxes, Guiding Questions. In this part of the video, I am going to be breaking down the guiding questions provided. Just so you guys are aware, I did do this beforehand, so the information is already filled out. However, I will be explaining how I got from point A to point B. So if you are interested in breaking down the guiding questions and figuring out what the questions mean, please keep on watching. The reason why I am doing this part of the video is because for exams such as the AP exam, it's important for us to make sure that we're responding to the questions provided. A number of us write amazing essays and amazing responses, but we don't always necessarily answer the question that's being asked. And that's going to end up hurting us in the long run because we will definitely be losing points. So again, it's important for us to make sure that we understand what the question is asking us so that we can make sure that we are as successful as we possibly can be. Okay? So to begin, the directions say that we're going to use the essay and our annotations above. The essay, to clarify, is the text, "Not all men are sly foxes." And with the essay and our annotations, we're going to respond to 6 guiding questions below. Now, just so you guys are aware, even though this does say 6 questions, we're only going to be writing answers to 4 questions because 2 of them are telling us to go back to the essay, "Not all men are sly foxes," and highlight our responses. Okay? So I'm going to jump right in. And the first thing that I did with all of these questions was to identify what the keywords were. And the keywords in this case could be any words that I'm not familiar with or any unknown words. And they can also be words that I think are most important. Okay? So I highlighted for number 1 the words focus, analysis, identify, analyze, which goes hand in hand with analysis, discuss, and conducts. And while these words I do seem to know what they mean, it seems like for some of them I might not be able to get away with just the denotation, just the dictionary definition. I might have to dig a little bit deeper and identify what the connotation is, right? What is the implied definition? And the way to identify what that is by looking at the context of the sentence, right? So I need to understand the context as a whole before I can identify what my connotation is. So what I did was I rephrased these words and redefined these words here. Some of them I did do on my own, while others I did have to go online to look up what those words mean. Okay? And what I ended up doing afterwards, after I rephrased my keywords, was I rephrased the prompt by asking questions. For me, it's easier to turn these prompts into questions because I'm going to be responding to them anyways, and it's just easy for me to answer a question than it is to provide a response for something that I'm told that I need to do. Which in this case, this is something where you're told or instructed to do something rather than answer this question. So focus on Brought's use of analysis. My interpretation of that is, what is Brought analyzing, right? I don't know what it is, they're just telling me to focus on it. So the first thing that I need to do is identify what is he analyzing. Then the second part of the question is saying to identify what he analyzes. So that I interpreted to mean, what is he breaking down? Because we know that an analysis is a breakdown of parts of a text. And then the last part of the question is asking me to discuss why he conducts this analysis, right? And so what it wants me to do is talk about, or in this case, write about why he is analyzing children's book. Why are children's books his focus rather than something else? If children's books is what he is analyzing, it could be something else, but I'm just assuming that based off of the introductory information that was provided to me before. Moving into number 2, the keywords here are airs, refutes, and counter argument. And here for the word airs, I know that air is what I breathe in. It's something that's around me that I can't necessarily see, but I can feel. And here it says highlight where in the essay brought airs. And brought, I know, is the author, which means that he's a human being, which means that he doesn't produce air. He actually produces carbon dioxide, right? Plants are the ones who help us produce oxygen, which is part of the air that we breathe. So clearly, in this case, we're not talking about the air that we are all familiar with, right? It's not the denotation. We want to focus on the connotation. So I'm going to think of where I've heard of the word air from, and I've heard the word air used in two different occasions. One, I've heard it used when someone says it's time to air out the dirty laundry. And when they say air out the dirty laundry, it's time for them to spill the beans, or it's time for them to share some kind of information that hadn't been shared before. I've also heard the word air out in terms of a room, right? For example, after gym, we've been sweating and running around, and so we come into our AP language class and the room stinks, right? And somebody says, hey, air out the room. They're telling you to open out the window so that air is flowing, so that the nasty smell leaves and more clean, purified air comes in, right? So what that made me think of that air might mean to express something publicly, to put something out there, to share, or to say something, right? I'm trying to put some information out in the air or out in the open. Refute means to go against or disprove, and that word counter argument looks a little funny, but I think I can figure out what it means by just identifying what the word counter means, right? Because I'm sure at this point we all know what an argument is, and that word counter means opposite. So a counter argument would be the opposite argument, or the way that we know it as the counterclaim, right? So what this seems to be asking me to do is to highlight in the text the counterclaim and the rebuttal, right? And before I can identify what the counterclaim and the rebuttal is, I need to make sure that I first know what his claim is, or his argument or thesis statement, right? That's the first thing that needs to happen. What is that claim or argument, thesis statement, central idea? And then I can identify what the counterclaim and the rebuttal is. And just a reminder, the rebuttal is where you talk about why the counterclaim is incorrect and go back to support your original claim. Question number 3, again, is a highlight. We're talking about descriptive language. This phrase should be familiar to you guys because we focused on imagery, and imagery focuses on descriptive language because it helps you to visualize or picture or imagine in your head what's going on. So what this question is asking me to do is highlight the words and phrases that make me imagine or picture or visualize Mother Goose and the sly fox. The second part of this is also highlight the concrete details that help explain these differences. So I'm not just going to highlight the parts that simply tell me who Mother Goose is and who Sly Fox is or what they look like, but I'm also going to highlight some other sentences that help me to further identify what the differences between these two characters are. Question 4 talks about books written for parents, right? Even though the main focus, sorry, I'm spilling the beans here for those of you guys who haven't read yet, the focus is on children's books. So in paragraph 7 alone, they move from talking about children's books to books for parents. So the question here is, why is it included in the essay? And most importantly, why is he talking about books for parents when his whole focus this entire time has been in children's books? What is the connection or the relationships between parents' books and children's books? For number 5, it's asking us to identify the placement of the thesis statement, right? The placement is the location. So where in the essay is his thesis statement? And again, the thesis could be the claim, it could be the argument, or it could be the central idea. And the funny thing about this question is that it is letting you know where it is, right? So it's somewhere at the end of the essay. So why, right, does he wait until the end of the essay to state it clearly? Usually your claim or your central idea or your argument or your thesis, you normally include it in the very beginning, right? It's the last sentence typically of your introductory paragraph. But in this case, he waits until the very end. Why do we think that he's waiting to the end? What effect is that supposed to have on the people who are reading this essay? And then last but not least, you're looking at the last line of the essay, which literally says, let's finish the job. And you're writing down, why do you think it ends like this? Why is he telling us, let's finish the job? Why is he commanding us to do something? Okay, so now, again, what I did here was I broke down the prompts. If you guys have any questions about any of the prompts, about anything that I did in part 2 or also in part 1, since I did not add this at the very end, send me an email, let me know. I can definitely record another video to show you. I can type out step-by-step process for how I did any of this. I can do a quick video conference, quick phone call, whatever is going to be helpful for you guys. Let me know. Whatever questions you guys have, let me know. Good luck with part 2 and tune in for part 3.